Horrid, racist, and homophobic texts among officers have led to the dismissal of several cases in California, and more could be dismissed. According to the LA Times, current and former officers and recruits of the Torrance Police Department in Los Angeles County traded hateful comments about people of color, particularly Black people and Jewish people, and members of the LGBTQ community. Here are a few examples. We had to fuck her up because we knew he wouldn't. Don't ask me where that lump on her forehead came from, though. Sometimes you have got to do things your own damn self. Always make Torrance great again. Savages. Since 2013, the officers identified by the Times have been involved in at least 7 severe use of force incidents in Torrance and Long Beach, including 3 that ended in the deaths of Black and Latino men. Jasmyne Cannick, culture critic, joins me now from Los Angeles. Hey, Jasmine, welcome to the show.
Hi, Reecie.
So can you give us a little bit more insight into what's been happening with these police officers? Do you know why, how they were exposed, and how it got to this point to where these cases have been dismissed?
So I think the first thing to say is people need to understand that Torrance has a notorious reputation. It was a sundown town. And so for people who don't know what that means, it meant that if you were Black or brown, when the sun went down, you needed to be out of town. And so the police department there, for the most part, still kind of operates like that. And, you know, we always hear about the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department, but these smaller police departments in cities like Torrance are just as bad. And so what happened was 2 Torrance police officers were accused of painting swastikas on a car that they were told to tow. And in investigating that is what led to the sort of Pandora's box of all of, you know, the other communications and text messages that have been going back and forth between members of that department.
Hold up. Let me hear if I got this right. You said they were painting swastikas on the cars that they were supposed to be towing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so those allegations...
And it is 2021.
And they're very bored to be doing that. Okay, and so did they find that they were in fact guilty of that, or did it just lead to this Pandora's box, as you said, that uncovered these other allegations?
So that investigation, I believe, is still ongoing. I think we can all make a reasonable assumption after hearing about and reading the text messages that have been traded, not only between the 2 officers involved in allegedly painting the swastikas, but the rest of their colleagues, that the swastikas were probably painted on the car.
Right. So what about these officers? Have they been suspended yet? What is their status on the force at this point?
So, you know, I'm not really sure what their status is. You know, I talked a lot on social media yesterday about the importance of identifying officers involved in this type of behavior. If for no other reason than they're being paid for with taxpayer dollars, which is public money, right? So you weren't doing this on your off time at home in your street clothes, you know, maybe in your own personal car. No, you're doing this in a uniform, in a car that's paid for by the people you are supposed to be looking out for. So anytime you have this type of behavior and it was done on the public's dime, I am a strong proponent of naming those officers. And this is what we talk about when we talk about changing the culture inside police departments and sheriff's departments, right? And so I tell people all the time, some of them don't like to hear it, but if we keep telling our sons and daughters not to go into law enforcement, these are the people who go into law enforcement.
Right.
Their sons and daughters go into law enforcement. And so we keep the tradition going on and on. And so as long as that continues and there are no meaningful consequences for this type of behavior. And when I say meaningful, I mean you lose your pension, you lose your job, you can be held criminally liable and civilly liable, right? We know that people really care when you hit them in their pocketbook, right? As long as that is not the norm, I think we can expect to continue to see this type of behavior, because between the unions and the laws that are in place, these types of cops oftentimes get protected. And what we see happen is they will get suspended. They will sue the city for reverse discrimination. And then the taxpayers will end up paying them $100,000 for being racist.
Right, right. Well, do you know of any protests that have happened to try to, like you said, uncover who the officers are or to take any action against these particular officers?
Well, most of the officers were named in the LA Times report, so there's not really a secret there. I think only 5 weren't named.
Okay.
But the local chapter of Black Lives Matter here in Los Angeles has been protesting the Torrance Police Department for 3 years, ever since the death of a young Black man in Torrance in 2018. And they, some of the cops involved in this scandal were the cops that were involved in killing him. Right. And so I think I think his family and a lot of the members of our local chapter of BLM feel vindicated, right, in knowing that they weren't off base just in terms of the accusations that the officers in Torrance are racist. I think it's really clear that they are. I think a lot more cases are going to be thrown out. I think that not only, charges that the local city attorney may have been bringing, but I think our district attorney, George Gaston, his office is going to be dismissing a lot of charges because these are, again, officers that go to court and sit before the jury, and swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Right. And now, we know exactly how they feel, particularly about Black people, but also the LGBTQ community as well. Right. I mean, you mentioned that Black Lives Matter has been protesting, but what has been the response from the LGBTQ community or from the Jewish community since there were text messages found that were disparaging them as well? Have you heard of anything? Well, I'm Black and gay, so, I mean, So you matter. Separate. I mean, we don't always separate, but right. I think again, for the most part, most of these, you have to understand, most of these text messages and stuff were about Black people, the majority.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Mark Uncle video in just one moment.
Up on your screen, those weren't even the worst ones at all. There was one, for example, that had a Christmas tree. What was it? A Christmas tree ornament, a candy cane, and a star on top of the tree, and an enslaved person. And the question was, which one doesn't belong? And the officer wrote, "You don't hang a star." Wow. Right. So, what I
folks, Black Star Network is here.
When I'm driving my car,
a real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
This is something that's been going on a long time ago. A long time. And I think what most of us are surprised about, not what was said, it's just the fact that something is actually happening, that there's actually an investigation, that there actually may be some repercussions, some discipline, something serious where people may actually lose their jobs. I think that's more of the surprise that I have. More than knowing that they because this isn't new to many of us. Like, okay, yes. I mean, in some cases, they talk to us like that. So, right. Yeah. So, I mean, can you give us any insight into the potential cases that can be dismissed? I mean, what is the criteria? Are they going to be looking at reviewing cases from these particular officers, or is there something else that they're going to be using to determine which cases to review? So I'm not in the DA's office or the city attorney's office, but I have to imagine that these officers are going on the Brady list. I have to imagine that every arrest that they made that resulted in criminal charges being filed against particularly someone who was Black is going to be reexamined. And as we've already seen, cases have already been dismissed. And it'll be interesting to see if this also results in people who are maybe in jail or in prison, either, get their sentences reduced or get released altogether due to this.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining us and giving us insight into this LA Times and Torrance story. We will definitely have you back again with more developments.
Thanks, Reecie.
All right, folks, back to that Roland unfiltered video in just one moment.
Once upon a time, there lived a princess with really long hair who was waiting for a prince to come save her. But really, who has time for that?
Let's go. Feeling myself. I'm feeling
She ordered herself a ladder with Prime one-day delivery, and she was out of there.
I want some hood girls looking back at it and a good girl in my tax bracket.
Now, her hairdressing empire is killing it. And the prince? Well, who cares? Prime changes everything.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?